Chapter 19. Projections. A hooting, hollering horde of the infected begins pouring onto the streets. It looks like a red river in the distance, rolling along the pavement like the viscous flow from a freshly popped cyst. They march together with a distinctly uncorporeal-like cohesiveness, as if guided by some unified will. Larry speeds down the road to his house, passing little currents of the infected that trickle in from the neighborhoods to join the conglomeration. He reaches home and skids to a stop, not even bothering to pull up to the curb. He rushes inside, followed by Ben and Megan. "Pen!" he calls out. No answer. "Penelope!" The sound of clattering metal comes from the kitchen. They enter the room to see Pen sitting at the dining room table with her back to them. Larry cautiously approaches. "Babe?" "Larry, wait," Megan whispers. Slowly, Penelope turns to look at him. Her face glints a sickly pink in the light. Megan gasps. "Oh no," Larry whines. "Larry," says Pen. Half of her face is covered by a pulsing lump of flesh, and her lips barely move behind it as she speaks. "You're home." Larry crouches down and takes her hand, his eyes misty. "You're gonna be okay." "Okay." He laughs. "Yup, don't you worry." "Worry?" She stands from the table. Larry stands to meet her empty gaze. Suddenly, a sphincter in the lump on her face lets out a loud whistle. Pen lunges at her husband. "Larry!" cries Ben. He steps in to help, but it happens too fast. A gunshot echoes through the house. Mrs. Palladino falls to the floor silently as the world is drowned in tinnitus. Larry falls to the floor beside her with her head in his lap. Ben watches for a moment before stepping toward them and putting a hand on Larry's shoulder. Larry brushes him away, staring through the floor. The ringing doesn't stop, even as Ben lifts him by the shoulders, drags him away from the infected body, and guides him back out to the car with Megan. Ben gets into the driver's seat, and they pull away without speaking. When they reach the police station, the chief is raiding the armory, piling the table in the briefing room with guns, gear, and ammunition. She directs the civilians to gather in her office away from the weapons. Ben and Megan comply, meeting Dr. Carpenter and his team, who are all working fervently on their laptops. "Napalm," says one of the students. Sitting at the chief's desk is one of the detectives, a woman whom Ben doesn't recognize. "Too risky," she says. "We have to assume some kind of return to normalcy after this is over, and we don't want people to lose their homes." "Extreme temperature is the best way to kill the Corpora Multa," the student protests. "Guns kill the infected." "They're not the threat." "There is no threat," Professor cues, "except for our own emotions." "Where'd you get that? A cat poster?" The detective snorts. "Honestly." She turns to another student working fervently on her laptop. "Any luck?" The student doesn't respond. "Miss Timms," the professor addresses her. The student looks up from the computer. "The simulation?" "Yeah, it's gonna take a while." Another student stands with his laptop. "Mine's done." He approaches the center of the room and sets his laptop on the desk where everyone can see. On the screen is a map of the town with a smattering of red dots where they know the Corpora Multa to exist. He presses a button and the simulation begins to loop. A counter ticks at the bottom, showing the date progressing from today, October 23rd, to Halloween. The dots multiply at an increasingly fast rate, and the map zooms out to compensate. By Friday the 26th, the entire town is covered in red. By the 28th, the entire county, and by the end of the animation, the entire tri-state area is a deep crimson. "Jesus," says one of the students. "How accurate is that?" asks Ben. "I guess about 87% accurate," says the programmer. "You guess?" "We're not working with a full data set. It's a worst-case scenario." "Napalm," the first student repeats. "They don't seem violent," says Ben. "We were able to walk right past them to get to the car." He remembers Mrs. Palladino and winces. The chief enters the room. "That might have been true," she says, "but things have changed." The room turns to her. "There was a man in the quarantine zone," she continues. "He was able to make them attack us somehow." "What?" the professor exclaims. Megan nods. "My sister-in-law," she begins. "She attacked Larry and he..." She chokes on the words before continuing. "We had to shoot her." "What do you mean he made them attack you?" the professor reiterates. "Why didn't you say something before?" The chief shrugs. "I said we were attacked. The how didn't seem relevant." "It's completely relevant." "What do you know?" asks Ben. The professor straightens up. "Whatever do you mean?" We've all shared our data with the police department. They're the ones who aren't being forthright. I don't think he was accusing you of anything, says the chief. I never said he was. Guys, Megan shouts. Let's be calm, okay? We have to work together. The professor nods. Indeed. So what do we do? Asks the detective. Larry appears behind the chief, holding a shotgun. I don't think we have a choice. He cocks the gun. They're here.